and welcome to another episode of Budgets Busted. If you're a returning viewer, you'll know that this is the series where I take a $100 budget deck list and upgrade it to a deck list with no budget. If you're a new viewer, congratulations, you already learned something new. I'm Craig, aka Poopy, and in this video, we are going to cover Rhinar, Reckless Rampage, one of the original 4 heroes for Flesh and Blood, and a really fun deck. I'd like to take a quick moment to shout out Dex and John, who helped me put together the deck list and gave me some really invaluable insights during this. And also, before we get into the meat here, feel free to join our Discord. There's a link in the description below. You'll be able to find the deck lists there and conversation around them, as well as sometimes early access to these things. So without further ado, let's get into Rhinar Reckless Rampage. So Rhinar Reckless Rampage says, whenever you discard a card with 6 or more power during your action phase, intimidate. Intimidate is a keyword that means banish a random card from your opponent's hand face down. At the beginning of the end phase, it returns to their hand. So it's not discarding a card from their hand. They're not getting rid of it forever, but they're going to lose access to it for the turn, so they can't play or block with it. The basics for Rhinar are that we're going to want to terrify our foe. We're going to petrify them. We're going to embrace chance, and we're going to swing for the fences. So what this means is we're going to focus on intimidating cards out of our opponent's hands so that they don't have the ability to react or block properly. We are going to also use cards that have some degree of chance associated with them, possibly some dice rolling. And then we are going to throw big, powerful attacks. There's a couple ways that you can build Rhinar, but I actually think it's a little more narrow than some lists. Rhinar can be built either aggressive or mid-range. The aggressive list has a lot more no blocks, goes a little bit wider with cards like Wild Ride, Bear Fangs. In the aggressive list, I'll even run something like Beast Within, and that's going to be a card that we'll talk about in a minute, but I ended up cutting from our final list, which is a bit more mid-range, and mid-range allows you to set up, run more cards that don't have that 6 or more power, cards that intimidate, and it allows you to block out a little bit more to set up that hand where you're able to intimidate 3 to 4 cards out of your opponent's hand and just send 16 at them. Now, you can also build your deck to include cards that either care about might tokens or agility tokens, the clash effect or the wind-up cards. What those are is clash is when you defend with the card, you and your opponent both reveal the top card of your deck. The one with higher power wins the clash, and then the effect is dependent on the card. Clash of Might, if you win the clash, make a might token. And then the wind-up cards say instant discard this, create an agility token. If it's an agile wind-up, mighty wind-up, it's going to create a might. Those are great ways to, on our turn, set up for next turn, but also intimidate our foe. So I really like those cards personally. If you know of some more archetypes, let me know in the comments. But I think Rhinar is a bit more narrow than maybe some other heroes when it comes to ways to build. So let's look at some of the ways that we're going to strike fear in our opponents. We have cards like Barraging Beatdown. This is going to be our staple card that we're going to run in Rainbow. This is our 9 of card, right? It says your next brute attack this turn gains if this attack is defended by less than 2 non-equipment cards, it gains +4. Intimidate, go again. Also blocks 3 and costs 0. So this is a great card because if we can sequence it so that we are able to intimidate 3 cards out of our opponent's hand and they don't have an arsenal, then we can guarantee that +4. But sometimes it's just nice to force our opponent to block when they might not want to. or else they'll have to take an additional 4 off of our, already powerful attacks. And let's look at one of those powerful attacks. We have Pack Hunt here, which just says when this attacks, intimidate. So if you're able to line up 2 barraging beatdowns and then pitch for a Pack Hunt, we already have our opponent down to 1 card in hand. They can always defend with a reaction from Arsenal to get the barraging beatdown effect to go away, but it's still a nice way to put our opponent in uncomfortable situations. Now, we also run Mighty Windup. As I talked about earlier, Mighty Windup allows you to instant speed discard it, make a Might token. I run Agile Windup as well in this list, and this is, as I mentioned, one of the ways that we are going to intimidate. It's also nice that it's a yellow pitch. That's something we're going to need in this list, is cards that pitch well but also have a 6 power. If you are in the community long enough, you will certainly hear Brute players talk about blue 6 power attacks. That's what they want. That's what we're gonna try and fill our deck with as many resource cards that attack for 6 as we can. But let's focus on the meat and potatoes here. So when I say we're gonna roll the dice and take a chance, I mean we are literally going to be rolling dice in this deck, because Scabskin Leathers is the best in slot for Rhinar's legs, and it has once per turn action for 0, roll 6-sided dice, gain action points equal to half the number rolled, rounded down. It also has Battle Worn 2. Battle Worn 2 is fantastic as, just on its face. That's already really good in this game. But this ability is certainly a high variance one that has determined many games for Brute players. Rolling a 6 is the ultimate Brute high, and rolling a 1 is the ultimate Brute low. But Rhinar can struggle to get go again, so this is often the way that the reason we need to roll this dice is to get that go again. And then Beast Within, I think I mentioned, I took this out of the final list, but let's look at it real quick. It says, if Beast Within is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the combat chain, banish the top card of your deck and lose 1 life. If it has 6 or more power, put it into your hand. Otherwise, repeat this process. Sorry, it's morning and I had to yawn. So Beast Within. The reason I cut it from the list is we are running a fair amount of misses, and I just felt that it wasn't consistently getting the value that you would want from it, because we don't run as much go again as a hero like KO. This to me is more of a KO card than a Rhinar card, but it's something I wanted to show you, as it certainly fits in a Rhinar deck if you want to build with it in mind. Now, every Brute player's favorite way to close out a game, Reckless Swing. As an additional cost to play Reckless Swing, discard a random card. The discarded card has 6 or more power, deal 2 damage to the attacking. Yes, your opponent cannot get to 2 against a Rhinar, against a Brute, lest they face the Reckless Swing. And it's a really fun card. We're going to run one of them, just because, like I said, we're already running plenty of misses for those 6 power attacks, and we really want to focus on cards that intimidate. So we also need to kill our opponent. Kill. We gotta kill him. Kill him dead. And the way we're gonna do this is with cards like Blood Rush Bellow. It has an additional cost to play Blood Rush Bellow. Discard a random card. Your next Brute attack, or your Brute attacks, gain +2 this turn. And if the discarded card has 6 or more power, draw 2 cards, and Blood Rush Bellow gains go again. I hate that I'm yawning. Anyway. I hate that I'm yawning. I hate that I made it so dramatic. Anyway. So obviously, if you do hit on Blood Rush Bellow, which you will because you'll play it when you only have 6 power attacks in hand, or you'll pitch your one miss to play it. This in itself is going to intimidate and give your brute attacks +2 this turn, so really, really strong in Rhinar. We also have Swing Big, which just comes in for 8. I mean, 2 resources, 8 power. That's incredible. It does have, if it doesn't hit, the defending hero gets a quicken token when the combat chain closes. Oftentimes, you're willing to risk that. There may be a few heroes where you really want to guarantee that you're not going to give them a quicken token, but I think most times you're okay presenting if you were able to pump this to 12, and you're able to usually win the exchange if you're going to force 2 to 3 cards out of your opponent's hand. And now Show No Mercy is my favorite card in the deck. It came out in Heavy Hitters. It's a Rhinar specialization, and it says when this attacks a hero, intimidate them. If the defending hero has no cards in hand, this gets +3. Now, that effect stays throughout the combat chain, which means if your opponent has 1 card in hand, because we intimidated them 3 times, they want to block this, they can't. Unless they have some way of, unless that's an unmovable in hand and they just have 3 floating, this is going to be going to guarantee that you're going to be able to leak some damage through, and it's a really powerful attack. I love it. I love it. It's a really fun card. Getting +3 because your opponent has no cards in hand, so this just coming in for 9 when your opponent can't block it. Oh, chef's kiss. So let's keep going. The budget grade for this, I was really torn on what to give this, and I ended up going with a B+. Here's the thing. The main deck almost doesn't change between the budget and the busted version. I can think of off the top of my head 3 cards that are different. They're actually 9, right? It runs some of our staples like Command and Conquer. We're going to run in Light and Strike, but for brute cards, we add Swing Big. So it's already like really good in the main deck that there's not that much that needs to change. But it's all about the equipment, right? The equipment is kind of expensive for Rhinar, and the budget options are good, but you're definitely going to be feeling like you're running budget equipment. So let's get into that here. I'm going to show you a couple examples of what I mean. Apex Bonebreaker, when you block with it and a 6 power card, you make a Might token, and it has Temper 2. Hide Tamer, when you discard a card with 6 or more power, you can destroy it, and it makes 2 Might tokens, and it has Battle Worn 1. Now, it might not be obvious why Hide Tamer is not quite as good as Apex Bonebreaker, but 2 Temper over 1 Battle Worn is very good. Also, you're able to put this down with 1 card on turns where you really want to block, and have a powerful way to crack back. Hide Tanner, bit of a gamble, making Might tokens on your turn. The ability to make it on your opponent's turn allows you to know what you're going to have in hand when they pop. And Hide Tanner is a little bit more difficult since most of the time you're discarding cards with 6 or more power on your turn. And then we have Scab Skin, Leathers, and Beaten Trackers. We already talked about Scab Skins, so let's talk about Beaten Trackers. Whenever you discard a random card with 6 or more power, you may destroy Beaten Trackers. If you do, gain 1 action point. This is still good. I mean, you can definitely, you have to time this right, but this can be massively important. However, it blocks for 1 less, and it's a one-time effect. So we really do want to try and upgrade our equipment as soon as we can. If we are on the budget list, equipment is going to be a big game changer. And this also does run Spring Tunic as our chest piece. So if you do have one of those around, I recommend putting that in as soon as you can. That extra is invaluable. And we'll talk about our headpiece in a minute. Now, these are the cards that we always want to run in a brute, and that's Mandible Claw. I know there's other brute weapons that are getting run more and more. We're seeing things like Ball Breaker, but for Rhinar, we're gonna keep it simple and go with Mandible Claw. This is a 3-power weapon that says if you've discarded a card with 6 or more this turn, Mandible Claw gets go again. Right, costs 2 resources to attack. This is how we're going to have turns that go wide. If we started with a Blood Rush Bellow, these are coming in for 5. So Mandible Claw, always in style. Oh Lord, we coming. Here's how we set up, right? Smashback Airhorn's gonna make us an agility and a might token. We already talked about the windups. We can discard these agile windups. Now here is a really, really fun card. Talk a big game. I'm always too conservative when I play Talk a Big Game. I'm always like, I'm gonna hit you for 2. But Talk a Big Game says choose a number. The next time you deal that much or more damage this turn, create that many might tokens. So being able to intimidate all your opponent's cards out of their hand and then send something that attacks for 9, and you can just say, okay, I'm going to hit you for 9 this turn. Make 9 might tokens on your next turn. Or make 9 might tokens that'll pop on your next turn. That's amazing. This to me is Rhinar's version of Cast Bones. But it does involve a little more setup. It involves a little bit more math you got to do in your head and figure out what can your opponent block with. But I love this card. I think it's really fun, and I think you will too. So here are our heavy hitting attacks. We have Alpha Rampage, which requires you to discard a card as an additional cost, and it is going to intimidate. Comes in for 9. Awesome. Massacre, if you've intimidated this turn, it's going to get +2. If it gets discarded if it's randomly discarded as the cost for paying for a brute attack, it will intimidate your opponent. Pulping, I think I might have taken Pulping out of our final list, but it's gonna have you draw and discard a random card. If it has 6 or more, Pulping is going to get Dominate, and if it's blocked by less than 2 non-equipment cards, it will have Go Again. So if it has Dominate, unless they have a card in Arsenal that they can block with, it will likely have Go Again. Send Packing, this is one of our most expensive cards in the Brute class that we are running 3 of. It has, when this attacks a hero, banish card from their arsenal. When the chain link resolves, if this didn't hit them, return the banished card to its owner's hand. We need to find disruption in this deck, and we're getting more cards as time goes on that do that, but right now, 10 packing is our best brute option. We also have Command and Conquer. You know it, you love it. It's $100. Might be more like 80. But Command and Conquer, great card. Let's talk about Splatter Skull. I would put this in the deck in a heartbeat. It is in the non-budgeted deck. If this fits into the budget deck, I will remove just about anything to put it in there. That's how good I think this card is. However, it comes out in the next set, Rosetta. Rosetta will be out in September. Well, it's currently September 1st, but it's not out now. So I can't put it in there just yet. We don't know where the price is going to fall, but this says, when this hits a hero, choose a face-down card in their banished zone that was banished by Intimidate this turn, put it into their graveyard. Wowee! Maron! This is a great card. I love this. And now, I need you guys lock in here. Unga. And I cannot stress this enough. Unga. We got to intimidate, right? We got to do the brute thing. So we're going to, like I mentioned, run Barraging Beatdown, Blood Rush Bellow. We also have High Roller, which is just High Roller and Clearing Bellow. These are just blue block 3s that intimidate. High Roller has the additional text that if you've rolled a 6 on a die this turn, instead intimidate twice. The only way we're rolling dice in this deck is our Scabskin Leathers. This would be very nice if we are able to intimidate twice, but we don't need to, right? That's not necessary to get the value that we're looking for out of this card. We just want the intimidate. The more we can intimidate, the more we can force damage through. So it'd be nice if we hit a 6, but we're not counting on it. Okay. Let's take a look at the lists. So let's start with our budget Rhinar list. As mentioned, we do have these budget equipment cards. In our chest piece, we are running Hardened Crossstrap. This is a great card, so I don't want to make it seem like Hardened Crossstrap isn't valuable. However, I think that we're going to get more than 2 resources worth of value off of Spring Tunic. So I do prefer that in the busted list. We also run Monstrous Veil as a headpiece. It's a Rhinar specialization, and it has Destroy This, draw a card, and discard a random card. When you have a hand of all 6 power attacks, this is a good gamble. You could still draw into a card that isn't 6 or more power and discard it, and you won't get your Intimidate trigger that Rhinar will have, but you're really not losing much, right? Because this has Go Again naturally. This has no natural effect of discarding that card. It's just going to draw and discard a random card. Rhinar's ability is where we're going to get the Intimidate trigger. We run Null Rune Gloves and our other piece of AB. Now, this is very similar. Skullhorn, destroy it, draw and discard a random card, right? So same thing as Monstrous Veil, except instead of having Battle Worn 1, we have Arcane Barrier 2, okay? Now, here's a card we didn't talk about, Beast Mode. If you've intimidated this turn, Beast Mode gets +2. Really simple card, nice, just high damage, throwing 8 after intimidating, very nice. I did keep our pulpings in the budget list, and I also added Savage Feast, which is a really good card that I don't believe I ended up putting in our busted list, and I imagine there are members of the community that are going to tell me that is wrong, and I welcome that because this is a really good card. As an additional cost to play it, you discard a random card. If the discarded card has 6 or more, draw a card, right? So if we do have an agility token, we have a Tunic resource, this is just going to be 6 Go Again with a free Intimidate, most likely, right? Because we're going to replace the card that we discard. So really strong if we can play it at the right time. Sink Below, most of these you'll be very familiar with. So here's the only other card. We have 2 more cards that we haven't gone over yet. Smash Instinct. It is just an Intimidate card, but it's a yellow that attacks for 6. We've talked about that and the importance of having resource cards that do that. And we do have a blue 6. Wrecker Romp. As an additional cost to play Wrecker Romp, you discard a random card. Most of the time, we're going to be pitching that, right? That is a resource card for us. In the inventory, we have some cards that we haven't talked about. You're likely familiar with Pummel. If you're not familiar with Take It on the Chin, it says the next time you would be dealt damage this turn, prevent 2 of that damage. If you do, create an agility token. I really like to put this in Arsenal and make sure that I'm playing it at a time where I can get value out of that agility token, even if that's just sending an additional claw for 3. We want to make sure when we play this, either we really need to prevent the damage or it's going to be valuable enough having the agility token, that it's worth playing. Right? Arg Smash. This is a card that you run into your Mechanologist matchups. It says roll a 6-sided die, destroy up to X items where X is half the number rounded down. Go again. So Max the Hype Nitro needs 3 hyperdrivers in order to make their Nitro Mechanoid. You can really mess up their plan if you're able to get this off at the right time. Let's say they didn't have the resources to play their Nitro Mechanoid, which doesn't happen. They end their turn with 8 floating resources. But if it does, this is a great way to disrupt them. It also is a wonderful way to take care of Dash.io. I don't really know Teklevasen. I don't know it that anyone does. And then Assault and Battery. It has the beat chest mechanic, which as an additional cost to play this, you are able to discard a card with 6 or more power. If you do, you'll make an agility token. This is a nice way to get an agility token and an intimidate trigger. I don't run this in our main list because, as I mentioned earlier, I don't really feel that this is a list that is trying to go very wide. I think of it as going taller and trying to just force cards out of your opponent's hand through Intimidate, block out a little, and set up for our... Go back to decks and take a look at the busted version. So right away, we can see the equipment that I've already mentioned, as well as Scowling Fleshbag. When this defends Intimidate, this is the only card in the game that intimidates on defense. And there's a reason. It's really, really good. Insanely good. This card allows us to just shut down our opponent's turn. Our opponent will be playing around this card for most of the game. This is a big concern when you're facing against a Rhinar. Am I overcommitting here if they block with Scowling? So obviously we have to run it in a list that doesn't have a budget. I believe currently it's around $40, which quite good for where it's been. I would definitely consider running that. As I mentioned, we are going to run Command and Conquer and Light and Strike. In a list with no budget, we get to run Splatter Skull because wherever this ends up being, we don't care. We're made of money. We have Swing Big, which is the only brute card that I don't believe is in the original list. And when we look at our sideboard, we're going to add Gambler's Gloves, which as an effect, or if an effect would involve rolling a dice, you can destroy this and have a replacement effect occur and roll a dice to change the outcome, right? So if you roll a 1 on your Scab Skins, you can break your Gambler's Gloves to replace that with a new die roll. This is also something that people bring into mirror matches because you are able to replace your opponent's die roll as well. So if you're playing against another Rhinar and they hit a 6, maybe break this and try and get them to roll a 1 instead. We also run an additional Arc Smash and Strength Rules All. When this hits a hero, turn a card in their arsenal face up, then banish an attack action card in their arsenal with power less than the damage dealt this way. This came from the KO Armory deck. KO is quite different than Rhinar, but it has good cards in that deck, and this is certainly one that you might want to consider running. I think that they're different enough, though, that if you're looking for a skeleton of Rhinar, you're better off going to a bulk bin and just starting pulling out the cards that we've gone over than you are starting with the KO Armory deck, which is great in its own way, but we really don't need cards like Wild Ride or Bear Fangs. Those aren't really what we're trying to accomplish here. We also run That All You Got. This is great for matchups into more agile opponents like ninjas. While this is defending an attack with 2 or less power, when the combat chain closes, draw a card. Right? Really nice defense reaction for those matchups. So as you can see, the main list not very different from our budget list. Now, I mentioned you may play Rhinar a different way. You may really like having Beast Withins and Wild Rides and Bear Fangs. I personally wanted to go with a list that can block well, because when you're intimidating cards out of your opponent's hand, they're going to get them back, which means they are going to be able to send a threatening amount of cards at you. They're going to be able to do a powerful version of what they want to do, because they may have blocked. They often should. If they have cards, they're going to really want to block, because we're just coming in with 9s and 12s and, really powerful attacks a lot of the time. But I forget what I was saying. You know what I was saying. That they have cards in their hand. That's what I was saying. So I went with a list that blocks more, so you can set up turns where you have maybe 1 or 2 barraging beatdowns and something that intimidates, making sure that you're able to get your buffs across, because they won't be able to block with enough cards. Again, I want to say thank you to Dex and to John for helping with this video, and hopefully you like Rhinar, you want to upgrade to the budget version if you've been playing them. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Check out our other Budget to Busted videos. If you're talking to new players, trying to get them into the game, please send this their way. Let them know that there are options for getting into this game that are less than $100. They're not going to break the bank. And in many cases, they're going to be a good pathway to upgrade to something more powerful if they like that deck. Also, make sure to like and subscribe. I will see you when I see you. Well, you'll see me. I'll be here talking to my computer. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.